Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Um, in the spirit of keeping things real casual, we're sitting nice and close. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Give us the intro down the line.
Jonathan Adishek. I'm the Senior Vice President for Marketing Communications at IBM. Thanks for having me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Giles Baker. I'm the Senior VP of Dolby OptiView at Dolby.
Hi, Shelby Williams. I lead sports marketing at AWS.
I'm so excited you guys are joining me on stage today. I'm Alyssa. I'm a reporter at Morning Brew. I will be asking most of the questions today, but we might try to leave some time for audience questions at the end. So keep that in mind. Um, Take this however you want down the line. Everyone can answer. Why don't you start us off by setting the scene a little bit when you think about the fan experience today, the experience of a sports fan and that sort of very digital experience now? What looks most different to you today versus, let's say, 5 years ago?
For me, at IBM, we're really fortunate. We've got a lot of great partners in the Masters, Wimbledon, US Open, Ferrari, UFC, and others. And the amount of data and the new insights that we're able to provide to the fans as they watch those teams, that tournament, those sports, has really changed the way that I think fans watch, engage, and really what they expect out of a broadcast, out of an engagement. And that's also true in real life. I mean, at Augusta, you can't have your phone on the course with you, but you still have the opportunity afterwards to really understand how a hole was played, how a round was played, if you were there, or if you're in a stadium watching or an arena watching a sport, you really can get a different perspective with that data. And I think it brings more exciting engagement, more exciting opportunity.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think every sport experience is a digital experience now, whether you're in real life or watching it wherever you happen to be. And I think one of the other things that's changed pretty dramatically over the last few years is the ability to experience live events pretty reliably wherever you happen to be. We kind of take it for granted, but the spinning ball of death when your team is like in the end zone is the thing that you really want to avoid. But I think it's not a thing of the past, but it's really far behind us in a lot of cases. So people can engage in sports wherever they are and have a really great experience, augmented by data and bringing them into the action.
I think we think about a lot of different sorts of fans. We think about fans in a stadium, in a venue, and how to make that experience as rich as possible. And we want to know everything about what that fan is doing. We want to know how long they spend in their seat, how long the line is at the concessions, and what they chose to purchase at point of sale. We want to know what jersey they're in line to purchase, and we want to know how they got to the stadium. Like, it's not enough to sell out your stadium and to have butts in seats. We want to know every single thing about what that experience looks like and how to make it richer. And then we want to scale that, and we want to think about the fan at home. And it's not enough to put data on a screen anymore. It's not a differentiator. So talking about what happened in a game is just a part of it. We want to talk about what's going to happen next, what the models are telling us, what the next move is, what the next play is, what the smart play is. So for us, it's like that bar is just always, always raising. It's never enough just to say, here's the data. Now we got to make some sense of it, and we need to make it matter to that fan.
Yeah. So much to go on there. I have like 3 questions at once. I'm going to try to keep it narrow, but I think you all have such deep experience with some of the biggest, oldest league sports organizations in the country, if not broader. So I guess first part one of this question, where do those partners, based on your experience, kind of stand today in terms of their adoption of some of these new technologies that maybe, they spent 50 years not having to think about?
Well, I think our experience here is we have a pretty big vision of what the fan experience could be for every sport. And it can be different for every sport because the story of every sport is different. I think there is a really shared enthusiasm from sports leagues to really dig in and understand what fans really care about in the moment so that they can deliver that incredible experience to them in real time. If my team is winning, your team might be losing. and I may be feeling happy and you may be feeling sad. We can optimize advertising around that. We can optimize the highlights that we show that are related to the experience and the action that's happening in the game. We're scratching the surface at this point. I think the partners we're working with, I mean, to your point, there's data everywhere. We need to pull the data together and then aggregate it in a way that we can understand what's going on in the game and what individual fans are interested in, and then find a way to deliver that. And that's really what we're focused on at Dolby, putting all of those pieces together. Yes, there's an understanding of what people care about, but really the challenge is deliver the experience in the moment to fans wherever they are and whatever they're watching on. And that requires a lot of pieces and joining them together. So I think we're at the beginning of that.
I think when we think about like individual teams and clubs and how they're using data to know their fans, I am reminded of the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Seattle Seahawks, who are amazing partners of ours. And when they win the Super Bowl and the lights go off and the stadium's empty, their work just begins in the off season to start thinking about how they're going to serve those fans the next season. And what happens is that they have a waiting list of 60,000 fans, and they're trying to sell 20,000 season tickets to fill those seats with the best, most qualified fans possible. Now, what they do is incredible. They have so much data about what every single fan wants to do. And this is the magic of that. We know that an out-of-market Seattle fan who sits in LA and buys single game tickets behaves very differently and wants to be spoken to very differently than a family that's in Seattle that goes to training camp and goes to community events. We should be treating those audiences really differently. Seahawks have a great story about one fan that they were trying to convert. And we knew a lot about this fan, and we knew that he happened to check the portal every single Tuesday from 3 to 4 o'clock. Every single week over week, they're getting this data. That's when he would go in. That's when he would pull down messages. That's when he would engage. And what they decided to do was, after weeks of sending this fan offers and sending him reasons to convert, they sent him a letter at that Tuesday at 3 p.m. explaining personally why they wanted to make him a season ticket holder. And he converted. Now, the idea of doing that one-to-one is actually insane. But imagine getting to do that at scale, which is exactly what we do. So imagine getting to have that level of one-to-one connectivity and serving somebody so personally, but getting to do that times 20,000. And then that's how you sell out a stadium with the right fans.
No, take it away.
I was just going to say we're really fortunate. I mean, I have nothing to compare to those two, but the way we work with our partners to really make sure that we're delivering technology and enabling them to utilize the data in a way that keeps true to their traditions, to their standards of the organization. I mean, we all face that every day. As a business, we all have to do things that keep us as IBM or as Dolby or as AWS or as Morning Brew. And it's the same as when we deal with the teams and when we deal with the leagues and the tournaments. They're implementing those things, but they implement them in the lens of, how do I do this that stays true to the work we've been doing and what we've established to make us the unique property that we are.
Yeah. There's, again, like so much to unpack there and so many challenges. You mentioned one of them, staying true to a historic brand and the team identity. And Shelby, your example was so interesting, and you started hitting on it, where this is one fan, right? But teams and leagues and sports organizations have millions of fans around the world. And those fans now have really high expectations that, they know that they're giving their data, or they expect it to be used well, or they expect a certain streaming experience. So I wonder if anything comes to mind for you guys in terms of how you scale something like that. Personalization, one fan. How do you apply that example to a team that is maybe thinking about 20 million fans around the world?
I think it's not easy, but it's easier than it used to be, because what it is marrying all the data points that are there. And we have more access to data than we've ever had before, and more sources to complement what the teams might own. I was just talking to somebody this morning, not on a sports issue, but on a beverage company. And they were talking about how do they engage with their buyers, their quick service restaurants at a localized level. And they had never been thinking about, what do I do that's more than the data that I have? They hadn't been thinking about, how do I pull in the local events? How do I pull in the weather? How do I pull in? So I think the ability for clubs and teams to put all of that data together and make it understand the journey that the client, that their fans want to go on, you can scale. If you can do it once, you can now scale it relatively easily, in my view. Once you get it solved, scaling, in my mind, you two might disagree with me, but scaling, in my mind, is not the biggest challenge. It's figuring out, what are you going to give them that actually is going to resonate and break through. Then you can get it bigger.
Yeah, I think the possibilities that you can take on and personalizing down to individuals and extremely complex ideas about the perfect experience for every fan, that can become really daunting. And I think that the useful thing that we find is the question of scaling up. You're scaling up from nothing. Do something. You don't have to do it all. Just get enough information to be able to make some useful decisions and figure out how to deliver them to fans, figure out what resonates, and then do the next thing. And if you do 10 of those, you'll find that, oh shit, we've scaled. But if you think about this giant nebulous future and think about, how do I step into that, it becomes too daunting. And so the unlocking piece for that is just all of the little pieces that are required to do something, which is a little bit of data, a little bit of content, a little bit of capability to customize what people are seeing on their screen, and then a lot of scrutiny and ability to think about, like, what's next. It doesn't have to be complicated.
I think also what it has to be is fail proof. Like, it has to be so accurate, because we're working in these environments where you can't fail. This is the most elite performing experience in the world, watching professional sports. You can't get it wrong. You can't get the Masters wrong, or Scuderia Ferrari, these luxury brands. Like, there's so much that has to do with respecting the brand and the value of that fan. Where for a fan, the barrier to entry is so, so low. Like, if they don't like what they see, they change the channel. Way harder to change my bank or to change my web browser. But it's really easy to change the channel if I don't like what I'm seeing. And so I think when we think about innovating, for us, it's like, we're not just building tech for tech's sake. We're thinking, like, what is the specific fan problem that we want to solve? And then we work backwards from that. And it's often about removing friction. Like, it's super annoying to me that I don't know how to watch the NBA game that's on that night, because there's we need to fix that. There's these great examples of, like, places where friction still exists in professional sports that are the problems that keep us up at night. And the first to fix those and remove that friction wins.
Yeah.
I think if I can just build on what both of you said, I think one thing is, there is a huge opportunity to overcomplicate what is happening, right? It's to get it so customized and so personalized. That's when you run into paralysis, because you want to be perfect and you want to get down to the molecular level. And that just doesn't, do you need to do that? I would argue, get to the higher level, pick 5 things that you want to go do, and then go do those. And then, this works, this doesn't. I could go deeper here or wherever. But then, Shelby, I hate to disagree with you, but I think you shouldn't fail. But let's be clear, as we look at tech, there's problems with tech all the time. And it's, how do you quickly fail? How do you learn from it? How do you move it really fast? Because you're right, people will flip that channel. But when you get a slowdown in whatever analytic you're putting up on a screen or whatever the response is, you got to be ready for all of those problems, so that both the team and the fan know, hey, we're in there, we're fixing it, we're on it, and we're good. You got a very brief window, but learning from those failures is key too.
Giles, I might put you in the hot seat for a second, but Shelby, Jonathan, feel free to jump in with your own example. I was just thinking of something we were speaking about when Shelby was talking about removing friction and sort of helping the fan along in their experience. whether that be broadcast, but other content. I think you were mentioning earlier some stuff that Dolby is doing on that front to help guide a fan to a certain game, a certain player they like. How are you all thinking about addressing that point that Shelby made with the friction?
Yeah, so it's really interesting for us to, we draw on our history, right? We work with creatives, we work with storytellers to figure out how can you bring a movie to life? How can you bring this piece of music to life? And in sports, what is the storyline and how can you bring it to life for people? The points of friction is really interesting. One of the, if we start simple, one of the really annoying points of friction when you're streaming content is that the delay between various people watching a game, if they're in different places, is different.
Are you live? That's the question I
Exactly.
always ask when I call my brother during a...
Yeah, and he's going to say yes, and you'll start talking, and he'll be like, wait, what are you talking about? It hasn't happened yet. Don't give it away.
What's the clock at?
And so, in a live environment in the stadium or a live environment congregating around a TV in a living room, you can cheer the game together and you can experience it together. But if you can synchronize the playback across people watching in different places, they can phone each other up and talk about what's going on. Like, it doesn't have to be really super engaging and super integrated of technology. You can use the telephone, but you can't today because those are basic things that are just out of sync and not solved. So we're thinking about that, and we've solved that problem. We can deliver the content within a couple of seconds to anywhere on the planet, synchronized for every viewer, so everyone can get the real life experience close to when it happens, but also in a way that they can interact. But we want to take it a lot further, and figuring out the storylines for individual sports is really interesting. Motor racing particularly is something that we're focused on. The Netflix show Drive to Survive has created a whole new set of fans built around storylines that you weren't previously able to get, right? If you were really into F1, you could kind of piece together storylines by reading a lot of stuff, but they do it for you. But they do it at the end of the season, right? You see Drive to Survive after the season is done and it's all being compiled. But what it leads to is different storylines for the same race coming to life. And actually, they recycle races 4 or 5 times during the season, because you can see it from the McLaren perspective. You can see it from the Haas perspective. So we're working on technologies, and we're showing this at NAB, where we're real time analyzing what's happening in the race and building the storylines in real time so that you can, as a Drive to Survive fan, engage with the race in a totally different way. And so we think this is a really interesting combination of lots of different pieces, because you understand the viewer, you understand the content, but you also understand that what's important to different viewers and what story comes to life is different. Is different in the way that they want to engage. And if we can really hone in on this, I think you can keep people engaged more. You can bring them into a sport more easily as well, because you kind of give them an on-ramp. And of course, for the content providers, this means higher engagement, higher advertising, and everybody wins.
I completely agree that personalization of content is like the next frontier that we need to tackle. It's not enough that we all get the same linear broadcast, or if it is enough, I want my little screen next to my big screen to give me the things that I care about most. And we just did this with the NFL around the draft. Everyone's going to be tuning in for this soon. We released NFL IQ, which is an agentic AI layer on top of next-gen stats data. So it's taking everything we know to be true about American football, layering our AI intelligence on top of that, and then giving everybody a dynamic dashboard to guide them through the draft process. Now, we understand that an analyst wants a super different draft dashboard view than maybe my fantasy team that's settling bar bets. So the next question is, how do we make that super personalized where I'm able to get what I want out of that data, but I can also feed a scout? I can also feed an analyst. That's where we need to be right now. And everything we're thinking about in terms of personalization and customization is, how do we speak to somebody in their native language? How do we help somebody understand a game maybe that's hard to understand or fairly geographically specific, and really break that down? That's a lot of what we're working on across global leagues, from soccer to football, or really thinking about how do we break that down and make it matter for you, the individual, in a way that doesn't have to be broadcast for the mass.
I want to hit on to the sort of at-home experience and this idea of immersing fans in the sports they like as we get more fans? Because the sports we're talking about, NFL, Formula One, the Masters, these are things that a lot of people probably, unfortunately, won't get to experience in person. So how do you guys think about that? Are there certain ways that you're approaching some of those properties with the at-home experience in mind and sort of trying to make it feel more in person, more immersive for those fans that are always going to watch from home?
I think there has not been a property that we've talked to that we partner with that is not looking at it that way. There's, pick your number, 20,000 people in a basketball arena or 80,000 people at Lambeau Field. The Packers care about the 8 million or 80 million people watching that game, whatever the number is, right? They care about the people there, but we don't work with the Packers, but this is my mindset. But that's because not everybody can do that. But how do you build that base? How do you create more engaged fans? And then let's also be clear. They're all businesses. They want to monetize those fans as well. So how do you engage them in a way that delivers personalized, relevant content that allows them to have that great experience? I think everybody is looking at that. When we work with Ferrari, yes, there are a lot of fans who are at the races, but there are 400 million self-identified Tifosi or Ferrari fanatics around the world. How do we go engage those 400 million? With UFC, it's 1 billion. How do we go engage those fans around the world? And they're not all coming to T-Mobile here.
One of the simple things that we try to do at Dolby is bring the images and the sound to life as if you were there. We have a technology called Dolby Vision and a technology for sound called Dolby Atmos. And these were technologies that were originally designed for movies and TV, but they work really well to make you feel like you're inside the action wherever you're watching and however you're watching. But in a living room environment, particularly if you've got a decent television and a generally modern sound system, you're going to get something close to that. The interesting thing about Dolby Vision in the sports context is, Ferrari red. It's pretty important red. If you watch that red, if you put like 10 TVs up in a traditional broadcast setting or a streaming setting, you got orange, you've got yellow, and you've got some red. With Dolby Vision, it's red. It's the same red across all of the different.
And the blue and white on the tail.
And everything
looks good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, behind in the background. Yeah, and so brands are interested in that as well, because if you get the color right, then you're being true to what they want to convey as well.
Yeah. I'm surprised we haven't said the word yet, but I feel like we've been circling around it when we talk about, taking all these data points and condensing them into something actionable and the experience of the broadcast at home. I don't think anyone's actually said AI. Oh, Shelby. I'll leave it at that. Really simple. I mean, I assume that especially for something like data collection and analysis and implementation, AI is going to change the game. Has it?
1000%. I mean, 10 years ago, we called it machine learning. But I think about Next Gen Stats as an example. We're 10 years into NFL's Next Gen Stats. That's become the gold standard of data and analytics in professional sports. And to Jonathan's point, Next Gen Stats was, really designed to be a source of truth, a truth teller to settle what actually happened in the data of American football. But then it was so successful that Next Gen Stats team decided to monetize it as a business. And now it's a huge monetization piece for the franchise to be able to charge teams for that data and to charge analysts. Like, this represents business revenue for them. But Next Gen Stats has also evolved from telling us what happened, like crunching so much data through machine learning, to say, we just measured that thing and we did it really, really fast. That was 10 years ago. That was enough 10 years ago. And now it's got to be prescriptive. We're going to tell you where we think something's going to go, how we think coverage is going to look, what we think is going to happen in the end zone at the end of this play, based on all the modeling that we have. We're also going to do it super fast. In a quarter of a second, we get sensor data from chips in uniforms that go into a server in the stadium that get processed up into the cloud. In 0.25 seconds, turns into a stat. That's actually insanely fast. And it's just table stakes. Like, that's not even impressive anymore because that's the speed that our business transforms at. So now I think the next iteration of this is we've got to be prescriptive about what's going to happen next. I think a really good example of that is the Blitz Orb on Thursday Night Football with Prime Video. If anybody watches that feed and you say, hey, look right here. We think something really interesting is going to happen here if you just keep an eye on this orb over here. And that's because we're crunching thousands of machine learning models using AI to go, the data tells us that something is likely going to happen over here. Now imagine this world where we're able to be like, don't take your eye off the ball, or maybe do take your eye off the ball and just keep an eye out here for this player gravity, see what's going to happen next. Like, how much more are we educating fans and engaging them in that narrative of the game?
For us, we've seen, I mean, I watched the stats you guys have, and it's fantastic. What we've seen work also for us in just recently, for example, at Augusta with the Masters, we introduced 2 new features this year. One was Whole Insights, and it's the 3rd generation of our Whole Insights. And it looks at the exact spot down to the inch, less than an inch of where the ball sits on the course. And will give you a percentage of what the likelihood is that you'll score a birdie, that player will score a birdie or a par or a bogey or another, whatever, a double or an eagle, because it's looking at all the real life data, and then it's looking at all the historic data and putting that all together. That happening live time really changed a lot that was going on. The other place that our AI really went to work this year was around the Masters vault. So the Masters has had this vault for many years of video footage. Goes back to the beginning of broadcast over 50 years ago. And if you wanted to in the past, you could go into the vault and you could find a shot, but you'd have to know exactly what year and what hole it was. And all. Now you could just type it into the vault in natural language, and you could do different things. Like you could type Larry Mize up and down, or Bubba Watson hook from the woods, and it will pull those up immediately. You could also type in yes sir, because when Jack Nicklaus sunk the putt on 17 in 1996, the commentator said yes sir, and it is using text to speech, and it's using images and all those things. The other thing you can do is you could type in the logo of a sporting good company, and it will go find the clip, whether that's on a ball or on the player's shirt. It will go find a whole series of them and serve this all up for you. And where it really becomes interesting is not just for the fans, it becomes interesting for the players, because I've heard from many players and caddies who say that they go use the app every night after they play in Augusta, and when they're getting ready for Augusta, because they can go watch a full round of what their competitors did or their own in 3 minutes. They can watch every shot. They can create their own foursomes or sixsome or however many players, my group. You can do all of those things, and AI is really allowing to get you to a more personalized and relevant experience that you want to go on.
I want to sort of thread the needle into something that I think we're circling around, and we've hit on it a little bit, but this idea of like access and making this stuff more easily accessible, democratizing it. There's more sports than ever. There's more fans than ever. There's expansion teams all the time. And with that, new fans and even diehard lifelong sports fans that are getting into new sports, it's hard, right? So something like the orb saying, okay, look here, or being able to search back in the vaults, how it seems like it's, very in the weeds, but how much of this do you think is designed or should be used with that lens of a new fan, bringing in a brand new fan and using tech and AI to hook net new sports fans?
Yeah, when we're looking at this, the other thing I'd point out on AI is it often will tell you things that you weren't thinking about. So it will find connections across the way consumers view content, or the way that content might be relevant across maybe different sports or different games that you weren't looking for, because you can't look at everything simultaneously. And so, using that knowledge and putting that together to create stories that match the way that fans want to interact with the content, I think that's the opportunity to bring people into new sports quickly. You can start to segment fans based on how they interact with the content, not based on what you think they care about. You can infer all of that using AI, and then you can build those experiences and take a fan through the journey of becoming, interested in the technical aspects or the historical aspects, and getting them more and more engaged around, becoming a super fan.
What we've done with the UFC is we're taking a bunch of that data and we're taking historical data and lifetime data during a fight, and where you get these insights that you just can't look at otherwise. You don't put it together, and we're constantly feeding a stream of it. It's called the UFC Insights Engine, and it is being streamed to a monitor right in front of the broadcasters. So they're getting those insights that makes it a different way for them to call the fight and to talk to people about that. Some of it pops up on the screen in the broadcast, some of it pops up in the arena, but it is constantly being used by the broadcasters. And it's all about finding those new stories, that new insight. Because if I look at the demographic of the UFC, it's a younger demographic. It's a newer fan. It's a newer sport. And it is hooking people in and saying, I want to continue. How do I learn more about this? I've got a 16-year-old at home who is like, I don't care that it's IBM. This is so cool because I can do this and I can have these conversations. He loves it.
It is 100% about building the story that's happening behind the data. Like to your Drive to Survive example, like that's why that's been successful in building groundswell of a whole new fan base, is because they're telling a story about what's going on. And we think about like in a game, an American football game is what, 2.5, 3 hours long? There's 15 minutes of actual football played in an NFL game. And so there's 2.5 hours to tell a story. And that's what I want to hear. I want to hear Tom Brady tell me this yards over expected was so phenomenal because he only had a 16% chance of making that pass. And he wasn't even supposed to play because he's hurt. And his mom is really sick. So who knows? Like that power of human performance and like the human connective element is, I think, why we all tune into sports. It's fascinating to watch somebody beat the odds, or to watch somebody perform so much over expected, or to watch elite greatness happen around you. Like that's what it is. And so the data's there, and like all these tools exist, and we can comb media libraries and we can pull these things. But like the magic really happens when we're able to say like the odds of Rory sinking that lag putt was actually insanely low. And that's where the magic happens.
So interesting to talk about all these examples of almost what's expected these days, not to do the pun, but what's par for the course, right? In terms of what fans expect when they're at an event, I know, watching the live stream, even watching content back shoulder programming, the expectations are just so high. So I wonder what you guys think the bar will be in a few years from now. What is going to stand out as a sports experience in person, on the broadcast, whatever it is, that is premium or new in a few years?
Well, I think if we fast forward 3 years, it's always hard to predict timeframes on this stuff. But I think if we fast forward 3 years, I think a lot of the data issues are going to have been solved. I think fans are going to expect to be able to engage with live events as if they were there. And what that means is at the same time as those live events are happening, there are so many inferred barriers that we just understand today about getting access to live sports. It's going to probably break if I'm in a bad connection environment. It's going to be a big delay and I can't talk to my friends. And, I'm probably going to have to get the same broadcast kind of experience as everybody else. And I'm not really interested in experiencing that sport the way everybody else is. I think if you fast forward 3 years from now, all of those technical issues will have solved. You will get that content live as if you were there, and it will be integrated with what you care about.
Plus one to that, I think we're going to have these incredibly curated personal experiences where I can watch an NBA game on Prime and I'm going to see Wemby walk in and I'm going to instantly be able to shop his walk-in look and have those shoes shipped to my house overnight. I think we're going to break the barrier of, sort of any sort of friction between what my brain thinks should be possible and what actually is. And I think the time to solve those problems is just continuing to get shorter and shorter and shorter.
I agree. It's more intense personalization and relevancy that's going to take people on the journey that they want. They're going to be able to watch the game, the match, the tournament from the angle they want, from the comfort of the chair they want to be in, and with the commentary that they are looking for. And sometimes that might be none.
Well, we got another 5 or 10 minutes. I know I said maybe we could do some audience questions. What do you guys think? Anyone? Yeah, raise your hand. I think we're going to run a mic over. Sorry, it's a long journey, so give us a minute here, and everyone else can brainstorm. All right, cool. We got some. I'm glad I saved 10 minutes.
This between the two is
I know we're doing
table
fitness.
tennis here.
We're gonna do sprints.
Hi, my question is, I'm a big sports fan, but I have a picture on my phone that shows you how many TVs I have in my bonus room to watch multiple sports. Is there any time in the near future where there's going to be some kind of app that I can just push to my television station, a quad screen? Because most of the times on Saturdays and Sundays, all the sports are happening at the same time, and I'm missing them. So I have to go to a sports bar, and I don't like sports bars.
That's so good. I have that experience too with friends and myself. We have multiple TVs and we've got multiple sports on them. Yeah, is that something you guys are thinking about?
I think it already exists.
Yeah.
To be honest. I mean, I get it we have YouTube TV at home. I get multi-view there. And I actually have it in my office, which isn't through YouTube TV, but it's a different way that I take my screen and I wish I was watching 4 sports programs, but I'm watching 4 different news channels at any one time during the day. And it's there. It's going to get better, but it's can't hear you. Sorry.
I was doing it.
I said I'm kind of doing it now, but if there was an app that can do it, I literally have a picture of my TV with picture-in-picture on it, and then I have my YouTube. It's got 2 different channels side by side, and then I have another TV sitting off to the side just to watch, the Formula One race or whatever.
I think there could be a future in it. Got one over here. Sorry.
No. Yeah, no, I love it. Sounds like it's to the problem of more, right? Like we all want to watch more teams, more leagues, 16 on one screen. That's the future, maybe.
I would like to hear from you guys. What is the biggest fan behavior you've seen change when it comes to sports consumption over the last 5 years?
I'll jump. I think to me, the biggest sort of opportunity there with fan behavior is that I think every sport that has done incredible storytelling, we think about Drive to Survive with Netflix, or we think about Full Swing with PGA Tour, they've brought this whole groundswell of new fandom. But I think the biggest problem that needs to be solved in fan behavior is that those same fans are not waking up at 3 a.m. in their local time zone to tune into the Grand Prix. Like they have not closed that fan and converted them to be a broadcast viewer, but they exist somewhere in fandom. And so this is the problem that we as a technology partner need to help figure out with our leagues is how do we help bring innovation to a fan that like maybe wants to root for F1 and maybe wants to be deeply engaged in storytelling and doesn't feel like they actually need to tune in to a 90-minute Grand Prix to have that level of fandom? How are we serving them? So I think we're going to have to sort of get out of like typical broadcast consumption when we think about like what it means to be a league fan or a sport fan, and we're going to need to serve them like bite-sized content, recaps in the PGA Tour app, similarly to what you're talking about for the Masters. I can watch my favorite player play their entire round in 3 minutes. That's great if I didn't get to make that tournament and get to watch 4 days of golf. So I think we need to think differently about what a fan really wants and how to kind of capture this zeitgeist right now of young fans that are not converting to broadcast.
I think that's right. And I think the deeper personalized experience to go watch what they want to watch when they want to watch. But the other thing that I'm seeing is I'm seeing the base of fans really grow internationally. So it's not just, I mean, look what the NFL is doing. It's not just that they're playing games in whatever, American city it is. They're in Ireland, they're in the UK, they're in Brazil, they're in Germany, and that's only growing. And if I look at other sports where we're engaged, I mean, UFC is in the Middle East multiple times a year, and they're growing in Europe and they're growing in Asia. And there are more and more fans that are really going after all of these things. And I think Technology has made fandom more accessible. People used to just read about a tournament. Technology is allowing people to watch a tournament or watch a game when they want to.
Anyone else? Yeah, we got another.
Hi. Oh, okay. Sorry, I was taking notes. But so what does a premium fan experience look like when, because you always talk about like as things 5-6 years from now, right? So what will that look like when access is no longer being tied to like being physically present at events? So like what would a premium experience be like for fans when you don't physically have to be there?
I got to tell you, sorry to jump in. I think that there is a premium on being there still. In the future, I still don't think that goes away. You go and you go to the Super Bowl or you go to the NBA finals. I watch it at home, but there's a difference about when you're there. I think what's going to happen is when you're there, the experience that's going to be in that screen, I'll still call it a second screen because you've got a board in the arena or the stadium. That second screen and that experience that you've got in your hand is going to change and be much more personalized for you. But I don't think going away from like not showing up, I don't think that disappears showing up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the being there in real life is always going to be the most emotional because you're surrounded by other fans, and everything else is trying to approach that. But I think Jonathan's right. The opportunity to make the real life experience more amazing as well is interesting. We work with NASCAR in stadiums where you can watch a race and you can't see all the cars all the time. But if you have your phone, you can watch any individual in-car driver, and it's zero delay between what's happening in real life and what you see on your phone. So you can look at the race, you can look down at your phone, you can look at the race, look down at your phone, and follow the various things that are happening. So it's in real life, but even better. And then I think, our goal is get everyone as close to that experience like you're there, whether you're in a living room or on a phone with technologies that bring it to life.
I think that was really well said, and I think that's about all we have time for. So thank you all so much for your questions and for engaging with us, and hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
you guys.